I'm delighted to invite Dr. Marina Milner-Bolotin today. Marina is an associate professor in science education at the UBC Faculty of Education. She is a mathematics and science educator with extensive experience in the K-12 and post-secondary, both in the classroom and online. And so, Marina, I invite you to take over the screen.
Share. All right. And I'm going to, I'm going to find my, excellent. Can you see it, Aideen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. I wanted to tell you that the goal of my lecture today, and I would have loved to call it a dialogue. I hope we will have a dialogue with the Slido, as Aideen just explained to you. I hope it will give you ideas of what you can do with your children. Now, I do not know your children. I do not know your family. So in no way I want to tell you what you have to do, but I want to give you some opportunities that you might not have heard about. And so you can decide what works for you and what might be helpful. So in the first half an hour, I'll try to share some ideas, and then I'll be more than happy to hear the questions that you will ask using the Slido option. So as Aideen said, my name is Dr. Marina Milner-Bolotin, and you can see here my blog. My blog will be posted on the website when you can download this or watch this lecture afterwards, so you do not need to write it down, or you can find it right away. But today, my goal is to share with you some resources that you can use with your children. And you can see that in this blog, one of the posts, I called it Learning with Your Children in the Time of Quarantine. That is about I would say 5 posts behind, so if you go back, you will see it. And in this post, what I try to do, I try to collect resources that you can use for your home education. I'm going to make it a little larger. Aideen, is it okay now? Can you see? Excellent. So I collected here what I know about online education and the online resources that I've used or my friends or my colleagues have used to engage their students or families, members, or children at home. I have to tell you that as a parent, and my kids are grown up now, but I know that it's always harder to teach your kids than to teach other people's kids. So I fully appreciate that. I could no problem teach a 30-kid classroom, and yet when I'm at home with my children, I'm their mom, I'm not their teacher. So that's an additional dynamic problem for many of us. But I hope that those resources will help you do it more as a family learning scenario versus you're the expert teaching your kids who don't know anything. And I personally found that learning with your children is always an amazing opportunity because it's interesting for you, it's interesting for them, and both can offer something interesting to each other. So what you can see in my blog that I decided to separate the resources into different categories. I'm a math and science teacher, but I love learning languages, including I tried even the Irish language, which I wasn't very successful with, but I did it with using Duolingo. So I use it on my phone. You can do it on your computer. That is absolutely free. And Duolingo now started resources for home, amazing free resources for you. So you can see language learning is the first part of my blog. Then a big portion of my blog is dedicated to science, coding, and math. And I will talk to you about a few resources from this selection. Don't try to do all of them, and don't feel that you have to like each resource that you find. We are now inundated by links, do this and do that, and not all fits. It's like in the clothing store. You can see something beautiful, but it is not for you. So you have to find something that it is interesting for you and your family, your child. Then I have resources for young and older that are also related to BC curriculum. For example, they have created a lot of resources for home. They have collections of resources actually for that are linked to the curriculum. In addition, I personally use the great courses by the teaching company. It's not free, but they have amazing discounts. So if you are passionate about something, you can listen those lectures from the best ever professors in the world. So there are lots of amazing resources here. Then I put some resources about the arts and the literature and museums, audiobooks, and cooking, and as well as exercising at home, which I have to follow more because one of my fears is how will I emerge out of the quarantine not exercising enough. So I just gave you an overview of my blog post, and I'm more than happy if you email me and say, Marina, please post an additional resource. I'll be more than happy to do that. A lot of those came as feedback from my readers. And now I would like to show you a few of them, so to show what you can do. And I am very lucky that a lot of those resources I have experienced teaching my nephew who lives in Israel. He actually doesn't even live in Canada, and we do it over Skype. We share screen. So I actually got a lot of feedback from him how those resources work. And the first thing that I would like to share with you, it is PHET interactive simulations. It is on my blog. And it is FET is Physics Education Technology. It is created by Carl Wyman, who is a Nobel Prize winner. And he's now not at UBC, but he was at UBC at some point. He's very interested in math and science education. And all those simulations are free. 658 million simulations delivered. It means how many people you can only imagine are using them all over the world. For the sake of today's discussion, I will click on math. So once again, you go to fedcolorado.edu/English, and then you click on math. And after that, you can choose any simulation you want. And the interesting thing about it, that they have simulations, maybe I'll do it a little, make it bigger. Is it a little better when it's bigger? I hope. So
Yep.
the simulation are separated by age, by grade. You can have simulations for elementary students, for secondary. I'll just show you a few because we have here parents of students of different ages and lots of simulations for older ages, but also amazing ones for younger students. So for example, when you have a young child, so I'm going to show one of the concepts you want to teach them is, for example, area versus the perimeter. So let's imagine you're the parent. You don't know, you don't remember what it is. I mean, this concept a lot of you do remember, but a lot of concepts that we learned in elementary school, if we don't use it, we forget it. So you can explore it with your child here. You don't need to be an expert to enjoy the simulation. So for example, here you can build different shapes and it will show you what is the area and what is the perimeter. And then you can play and build different shapes, for example, that have the same area but a different perimeter. So for example, here I built a shape that has the area of 3 and the perimeter of 8. And I can see if I can, oops, I made a mistake. Here I have to make blue. By the way, I made a mistake and I wanted to say something important about that. When we are adults, we often feel that when we're dealing with our children, we have to be perfect. We cannot make mistakes because what if they know that we made a mistake? I feel as a parent who made lots of mistakes, and most of the time, I'll be honest, not always acknowledge to my children that I made a mistake. It is okay for them to learn, and to learn means to make a mistake. So if you're learning with your children and you're making a mistake with them, that's not a problem. I don't feel an issue here. So for example, here we can see different shapes. They have the same perimeter, the same area, but I can start playing with it. And for example, if I build this shape and this shape, both have the area of 5, you can see that the perimeter is different and the area is the same. The area is the number of squares. So you can play with your kids and explore the concept first. And after you explored it, they always have a game. So if you go back again, instead of choosing the explore, you can choose a game. And I know that a lot of children love, and adults too, when you can progress through levels, you can get points, you can do, you can compete against each other, of course, if you're not afraid to lose to your children. And you can do a lot of fun things with those. So this is an example of a simulation for a very young group of kids, so they can learn math, they can learn about the perimeter, the area, multiplication, but it also has a beautiful concept of playing, because a lot of times our kids, we expect them to learn the way we learn. Probably we had worksheets when we were students. So here is an opportunity to play, and they have lots of amazing things related to fractions, to build inequalities, to do a lot of things that the kids might not have done in a conscientious way. So for example, a lot of people feel that fractions is something difficult and they don't want to deal with it. But it is, you can learn about it. It is not, you can learn about it with your children using the simulation. So what I suggest to you is go to simulation and choose what you want to study. Math is only one thing. You can study sciences, physics, chemistry. Ask your child what they're interested in. Maybe you want to learn about the global warming and other things. So this is an amazing opportunity your kids can do. And you can do it using Skype. You can share a screen like we're doing now. So maybe your children can do it with the grandparents who live far away, or with other family members. Now, the next resource that I would like to show you, and I know I've shown you only a snippet of what FED can do. I'm asking you, of course, to do more at home, but it's just an idea, is reading. I am showing here, again, it's on my website too. You have a lot of, some of you have a lot of books at home, and I have a lot of books, but some of us use the libraries, and today the libraries are closed. So what do we do when the libraries are closed? There are many, many resources online, and one of them is here. It is AmericanLiterature.com, and American literature doesn't mean that those are only American authors. It's just the name of the website. And you can, for children, do short stories, great short stories. I started reading stories with my nephew from the children's stories because he's learning English, so we have double purpose. But remember that when you're doing short stories, for example, I'll show you the selection. I think this is amazing. And those, probably a lot of you are smiling because you remember in your childhood. But the interesting thing is, when you're reading online, with all the disadvantages, there is an amazing advantage. And I'll give you an example. We were reading a book by, and I of course cannot find it now. Oh, here it is. The Bremen Town Musicians. So my nephew lives in Israel, and he had never visited the Bremen, the town, Bremen. Where is it? It is in Germany. And then for him, the whole, to explain to a child what it meant, what was the era where Grimm brothers wrote this story about, I was able to Google it up to show him the map of Germany, to show him the pictures of the town. So this story, the book can come alive with the book, but also with the pictures that you can find to accompany the story. In addition, there is another big plus when you're reading online. A lot of words here were new, might be new, because today the language is changing, and also when you're reading, you expand your vocabulary. I always use this as an opportunity to look for new words and to make a collection of new words that we learn with a story. If I'm using a book, a real book, like a book, I have to find one, for example, like this one, I have to have a dictionary with me to learn new words. Here it's all at my fingertips. So I find this collection of stories are amazing. And I cannot see why grandparents cannot read the stories to the children over the Skype or some other tools, or the children can read to the grandparents. Either way, I think today, with all the negative, obviously, situation that we're dealing with, we have a positive outcome that we can learn online and collaborate online with family members and share stories, share things that we weren't probably doing before as actively because we didn't have time. So reading is an amazing opportunity, lots of books online. The next opportunity I would like to share with you is the museums. I do not know how many of you were able to visit the Exploratorium in San Francisco or the Louvre or other amazing museums, Prado, but today those museums are closed. And yet a lot of those museums created virtual museum tours, which is unbelievably amazing. So if you ever visited those museums, you will be able to tell your children even more about them, or you can ask maybe your children to visit virtually and tell you a story, because this is an opportunity, albeit virtually, to visit the places that we might have not visited and we wanted to visit. For example, some of those museums I was very lucky to visit, some of them I haven't. And I just wanted to tell you that this is all free, and this is just unbelievable what you can do. So your children can visit the places that maybe they can get ready and visit museums with you later when you can go there. By the way, the teacher, I can tell you that when you go to a museum, if you get prepared before the visit, if you learn about the museum, if you know what the museum is about, what is this exhibit, your visit becomes so much richer. That's what we teach teachers, that you have to have a preparation for the visit, and then the reflection about the visit. So I really hope that you consider using this opportunity actually to go virtually and break the borders and see what the world can offer us. Now, and it doesn't prevent us also to study geography and do a lot of other things that we can do virtually. But the thing is that you have to try to, in my view, to have some purpose of the visit. So not just visit without a purpose, but to say, for example, if you want to study geography, maybe your roots are in Peru, or you came from Ireland or from Ukraine like I was. Unfortunately, my children do not know as much about Ukraine that I wish they did. So maybe it is an opportunity to go online and study the roots of your family, the history, the place. So it is a fantastic opportunity in my view. And now I wanted to spend the last couple of minutes to tell you a few words about what you can do without the screen time. I know that a lot of people ask me that we're sick and tired of Zoom. We're very tired. The kids, we wear glasses like I do, and a lot of you probably do as well. It is not healthy to be in front of your screen all day long. And I completely agree with you. So what can you do with your children that you are not going to be in front of your screen? So for that reason, if you go back to my blog and the blog post again, Learning in the Time of Quarantine, I put here resources that you can do with your children at home without being glued to a computer, because this is also something positive that you can do. And this one was shared with me by Teresa Lau from the Department of Physics and Astronomy at UBC, who are doing amazing summer camps in the summer. I apologize for that. You can see I didn't do my Duolingo homework yet. And Teresa and her friends, her colleagues, students, they are usually preparing amazing hands-on activities for the summer. But this year, the summer, obviously, camps will not be happening. So they decided to create online challenges, create the challenges online, but they are the challenges that the kids can do at home without being online. So those are things that your child can build at home and you can help them. For example, like a Rube Goldberg machine. And when you visit it later, I invite you to actually check what it means. Those are things you can do with the things that you have at home. You don't need to buy anything else. You have to think of your imagination. What can you do from the materials that we have? And after you build such a Rube Goldberg machine, you can create a video and email to Teresa. And I'm sure they'll showcase the best, the most exciting and interesting videos. So we all think that it's important not to be glued to a computer all day long. So I have a couple of more ideas that you might want to do with the non-online activities that you can do. For example, I know a physics teacher. His name is Gordon Gore, who lives in Kamloops, and he has mobility issues, so he has to be on a golf cart. I hope you can see the book. So he started photographing nature from a golf cart, and he is a physics teacher, so he wasn't an expert on birds, but you can see that now he can tell you so much about the birds in the area where he lives. It's just unbelievable what you can do with the camera. So why not to take your camera and start noticing things? For example, how often do our kids look at the stars and look at constellations? How often do we look at the spring outside? I think we're so fortunate in Vancouver and in British Columbia to have an amazing spring. It is an opportunity to learn. So maybe you go outside and you photograph the magnolia trees, and then you can go home and learn about what those are, or noticing something else. So I think learning is everywhere, and the biggest thing that I can tell you that I felt, and my husband and I, we felt, whatever we say to our kids, the biggest thing is what we do. The kids notice what we do and how we behave. If you show that you enjoy learning and you pay attention to things and you're open to making mistakes and figuring things out, then I think that's the biggest learning experience that you can share with your children. To be open to learning and to be excited about the world around them. And now I'm a little bit early, but I would rather have more questions. Aideen, if it's okay with you, I
Of
would rather
course.
have, if we have questions, I haven't
Yeah.
checked. Do people
Your
ask?
questions are coming in. I'll look after that, Marina. Don't you worry
Excellent.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can look at that. So I'm going to take back the screen and head over to
absolutely.
Slido.
Yes.
And I'll share the Slido screen with our viewers.
Perfect. And I can return later to any point that I glossed over. I just feel the questions might be the most relevant. Mm-hmm.
And I think there were some questions that came in before, you actually covered a certain topic. So,
Oh, yeah.
which is completely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just going to see if I can
Mm-hmm.
move this. My sidebar is in the way for me to
Mm-hmm.
read the questions. I'm just going to move me out of the way. So the first
Oh,
question
yeah.
that I'm going to highlight,
Yeah.
right, yeah. How to talk to children about hate crime during this crisis, specifically towards our Asian population.
I'm obviously not Asian, but I'm Jewish, and there have been more than enough hate crimes towards the Jews. So I think you have to talk to your kids about it. But my biggest thing, what I try to teach my children and how I view things, I always try to resist the idea of them, all them. You know, when you have friends from different groups and races and different people, you will never say all of them are that. In every group, there are bad people. There are people who are full of hate, and it's very sad that those people exist. But I think we have to talk about hard things with the children. Of course, it exists, but I think, to me, the biggest thing is not to be a victim and not to generalize. I refuse to say them. I refuse, because I know in every group amazing people, and I know bad people in every group as well. And unfortunately, it's how I would do it.
And the same question actually came up last week, Marina, with our first speaker, and his advice also was very similar to what you said, but also not to be a bystander. If you see something, say something.
Oh, absolutely. That is the most important thing, not to be a bystander. I agree.
Thank you.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So next question. We are two parents, both working from home and have two school-age children. How do we set a routine that works for the children and our marriage?
Did you tell people that I'm not a marriage counselor?
No.
Look, it is difficult. I cannot give you advice because I do not know your family. I can tell you what worked for us. each one of us, my husband and I, we have our own strengths. For example, he loved to take kids into sports. He loved to do other things, build stuff. I love to do other things with them. So I think it's very important to do with kids things that you're passionate about. Even maybe you're not, even if you're not passionate about something, none of you, but try to find something that it is interesting for you. That, in my view, doing things where the kids feel that you hate it, you do more harm that you help. I think we all have something we want to learn. So even if you're not an expert on that, let's say you want to learn a foreign language. So I started learning German because my son challenged me and he said, who can do it better? And I won, I have to say. But no, but to be serious, I felt that it's okay to learn with my children. In terms of routine, it's very, very important. Because if you have a routine, at least you know what you aim to do, what you want to be doing. If you don't have a routine, then you don't have, how can I even say that? I would say it this way. It is better to have a routine and break it and know that you've broken it, you didn't adhere to what you wanted to do, than not to have any. So we, in our family, had a routine by discussion with all four of us. Our children and us, we just sat down and we said we have to figure out how we're going to do it. And in our family, it was 7 to 9. It means we agreed that they will be doing homework 7 to 9. And now they're 26 and 24. They still remember that. They still hate 7 to 9, but they acknowledge that it was important.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about the routine about some of our older children who are, teenagers, they're sleeping in later than, getting up at 7 a.m. for school, but instead now it's much later, 10, 11, even midday?
I mean, this is, of course, an issue. By the way, I've read a lot of papers about our teenagers not getting enough sleep because they go to bed very late and then they wake up early to go to school and they fall asleep, which is a problem. I mean, I think you have to have a routine, but you have to discuss with them. Dealing with teenagers is very difficult. I've been through that. I'm not envious of the parents who have teenagers now. I know it's hard, but I think that helping them to establish the routine where they go to bed at a certain time and don't get glued to the phone. It's very, phone is a huge problem because you have all this continuous feedback. Yeah, somebody liked your Facebook post or other things. I think one idea might be to ask your teenager to record the time just for them, to know how much time they spend on the phone. They might be very surprised when they figured out how disruptive it is. So for example, right now I turn it off and I only used it to put slider on in case I would need it. But you're also going to teach them how to deal with social media. I think it's a very important skill beyond the pandemic.
That's a whole other lecture, I think.
Yeah.
Social media and our teenagers, for sure. Thank you. Such great advice there. So yeah, Marina, if there's another outbreak in the fall, which
the second
there's
wave.
a possibility,
Yes.
How will school change its process to maximize the learning online compared to today?
This is a very good question, relevant question. And on my blog, I just today posted a new post about the difference between what we're experiencing now and what we will be experiencing in the fall. Right now, we're not learning online. We are just do remote teaching because we were not prepared for the pandemic. We did it as an emergency situation where we had to figure out how to do what we're doing now normally in front of the students in a classroom, how to do it online without being ready for that. And it's a huge learning situation for the teachers and for the parents and for the students. We're going to use the entire summer to get ready for the fall. I think that's actually a silver lining of this pandemic, if you can say it this way, because the amount of learning that I'm observing in our educational communities, oh my God, that is just huge. Even at UBC, if you look, a lot of professors did not want to teach online and to learn how to do it. And now they have no choice and they have to learn that. But a lot of these people will find out the opportunities that they were not aware of. And now I think this online will become a part, I would say it will be, we call it a blended learning, where you teach face-to-face, but you use online much more effectively. I know the same will do teachers. I know they're learning, and I hope that in the, if it happens in the fall, it will be different. However, with all that, the challenge is if you have young kids, not teenagers, at home, you cannot go to work and live at home 7 and 8 year old and say go and learn online. How this will be done, I do not know, but I think we have to realize that moms and dads cannot always be superman and superwomen. Yeah, we have to be supported. We cannot work full time. The kids are at home. We have to do homework with them, and we have to do everything else we have been doing before, but the school doesn't exist. So I think much more thought will be placed into making it manageable.
Mm-hmm.
Right
Gosh,
now,
there
for
was,
many families, it isn't. And the other issue is that um, not every family has the number of computers you need for everybody to be online. So imagine if you have 2 or 3 kids, each one has to have a computer or an iPad or something else, then the parents have to work online. It might be unrealistic in terms of the speed of the internet or the other things. So what I've
Mhm.
heard that schools will consider how to supply devices for the families where they might have the lack of devices to operate online.
Mhm. Gosh, there was so much information in that answer, Marina.
Oh,
That
sorry.
no, it's excellent. It's excellent. I was taking it all down just from. I have to say, I'm so impressed with how the resilience I've seen
I
in young
agree.
students. They really are. They're doing and so responsible as well
Yeah.
to
And
do the
creativity.
yeah.
And the other silver lining is, look, every generation went to really difficult times. If you go back and think of yourself or your parents, there was a Vietnam War, before there was World War II, other huge challenges that our grandparents had to deal with. Every generation has it, and in some ways, I hope that this pandemic will help us how to be resilient. When challenges happen along our ways, how do we help our neighbors? How do we understand that we are responsible for each other, not only for our family?
Mhm,
So maybe something good will happen.
mhm. And as you said earlier as well, it's moving out of that place of fear and putting you in a place where you're learning new skills and
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
embracing
Yeah.
that, and for our kids
Yeah.
too. Great. So the next question, with all these programs, resources, and our kids doing school online as well, how do we ensure our kids are not exposed to too much screen time technology? Now, you may have covered this earlier,
Mhm. That's a
Marina,
big issue. That's a big issue.
where
I
you're saying,
personally, yeah, I wear glasses, and I noticed that in the months and a half of this, being always in front of my computer in my basement, I feel that my eyesight is getting worse,
yeah,
and I think that we have to balance. That's a huge issue. I think being in front of a computer all day long is not good. I try to do walking audiobooks and do other things that are not in front of the screen.
right. And you mentioned earlier about getting the students themselves to time themselves how much they're on their
Absolutely.
phones and
And the
time, and that
parents,
they
actually.
made a little bit of acknowledgements. Yeah, great.
I'm
Uh,
timing myself for the same reason. So I
yeah,
know how much time I
yeah,
spend.
yeah. I work full time at home now. How do I balance my work and homeschooling for elementary kids?
Oh, you're asking. It's an interesting question. I have no
Mm,
idea how to balance. I personally feel that people cannot do it alone. Maybe uh, I think it can only be done if we help each other. Because for people, and think about it, some people have kids with special needs at home. Imagine if you have 3 kids and one of them is a kid with a special needs and all the services got canceled. How do you, and you're alone at home, even if you're not working, how do you do that? And that's why I think that this whole closing schools is unsustainable for a long time. Because in my view, we should worry not about the children, but about the parents.
right.
it's a huge challenge for the parents how to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah.
I honestly do not know. I feel for you, but
Yeah.
I don't have a magic answer.
And it seems to be inherent in a lot of the upcoming questions as well,
Of
Marina. So
course.
let's just work through them here.
Okay.
I think this is similar. I was wondering how to set a schedule for kids not of similar ages. This person has a high school student and an elementary student. So
I absolutely, it has to be different because we are different. And I know that our kids are 2 years apart, and it was always why it is for him and not for me. They always compare. But I think it is better to do it through dialogue so the kids feel it was their decision as well. I think
right.
when a decision is imposed on you, it is much harder versus when you at least provided some feedback into the decision. So I think our kids are much smarter than we think. They are smart, they can do it. And I think if you teach them to make those decisions, in addition to having this decision made, you will teach them how to arrive to a decision in a difficult situation. So you're doing two things. I think the schedules have to be worked out, because if there is no schedule, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to break it than not to have it.
And I think for me as well, as I've had to learn to be really, really flexible, my schedule does not work
Absolutely.
for my students. So I've just had to, be very flexible and patient. And as people keep
Yeah.
telling us, be kind to ourselves. This is such a difficult time that we're in, and support each other through communities and family.
And also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Maybe you will create a schedule and you will need a few iterations to make it happen. Again, in life, we make mistakes. That's okay. You made a mistake. You analyzed why it was a mistake, and you try to correct it.
Right.
Those are really important skills for life, in my view.
Yeah. To me, it's like civil discourse throughout the way at home, right?
Yes, absolutely. You're
Really.
modeling what you want them to do when they grow up. Absolutely.
I try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a mother volunteering for Deepak 43. Can I publish in our newsletter and website the link to your blog?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
shared it with everybody I know. Absolutely. Yeah.
And maybe we'll repeat it at the end so that maybe this person, well, she's a mother, so it's a female.
She can email me. Please email me. You know how to find me. Any one of you is welcome to email me if you have questions. I cannot help you with marital issues, not my field, but I can help you if I know of some resources or you are not sure how to use it and you would like to have a short phone conversation or something. I'll be happy to help.
Right. Okay. And maybe we'll give that email and blog at the end, Marina.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think I lost a question there. Sugar, I'll see if I find it. Oh, sorry. Should we be in? Yeah, no, there was a question from somebody who was dealing with a toddler. So I'm going to actually try and remember, because I think it was a really great question.
Oh,
she or he mentioned that they had a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
And so finding it really difficult to manage.
I know it is difficult to manage. I cannot tell you what to do. You're the mom or you're the dad, you know better. But I think the kids also can teach each other. I always found that when I taught something to somebody else, I'm learning more from them than they're probably learning from me. So right now, when I meet with my nephew who is only 12 years old, he teaches me a lot because he asks me good questions. He also teaches me, sometimes I thought I understood or I knew, and I found that I didn't. So what if your 8-year-old teaches something to the 3.5-year-old? And I find that teaching somebody, you're learning a lot. And I feel that having responsibility and sharing some challenges with the kids, we did it with our children. We have gone through many challenges when our kids were growing up, and we shared them with the children because we felt it's one family. And now the families face significant challenges, and each one of the family members can contribute to resolving them. So I don't feel that it should all be only on the parents to make it as if the kids, nothing happened. No, the kids can support the families as well, and they will be proud and resilient as a result.
Thank you.
Should we, oh, you're reading. The next one,
Should
yeah?
we involve, or maybe should we be involved too much with our kids, or should we give them some time to explore these online resources if they can?
If they can is a very good thing. So what if, for example, I do not know what age, but what if you tell, that's what I did with my nephew. I showed him the website and we tried to gather different PhET simulations, and I asked him, what would you like to do? And he told me that he had issues with fractions at school and he wants to do fractions, and we started doing fractions. I think the kids, if you give them the opportunity to contribute, they will be much more engaged. But it depends on a child, of course.
Mm-hmm. 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 And your nephew, you said, is 12?
12. Yeah.
Is there an age that you think you could set them up online and then walk away and then go do your work and leave them online for an hour?
It depends on children, I think, because I remember we were using all this cyber nanny that our kids would not spend too much time online, you know, all the software that limits them. And eventually they broke all our passwords and they started locking our computers from us. So we figured out that at some point it was not possible, but I do believe in negotiation. I do believe that you have to talk to your kid, and you might have two kids, two brothers, or a brother and sister, two sisters, and you will see they're totally different. One child can study for an hour and be totally engaged, and the other needs more support. They're different. It depends also what you're doing. If you're passionate about dinosaurs and you go to a museum about dinosaurs, maybe they can be 3 hours on a computer.
Thank you. Sorry, this platform is so sensitive. So this person is also looking for where to find your information. So we'll put that, I think we'll do that at the end. We'll go back, we'll share screen. I'll go back to your screen and you can give the details of your email address and blog, I think. The next question is learning from home versus learning at school less effective? How do I assess their level of understanding of their age? Good question.
It's a good question, and my answer would be depends. Because learning at school versus learning at home, learning at school varies. Sometimes it's very ineffective, and sometimes it is. It depends on the teacher, it depends on the activity, it depends on the level of students' interest. So I would be hesitant to say A is better than B, because to me it is comparing not a uniform learning at school versus uniform learning at home. And it depends on the parents' availability, how much they can be involved, and on the child. Some kids are very, very much independent. They can study by themselves. They're much more, we call it self-regulation, when you can study on your own and see what you're doing. But at the same time, other kids need more support. So I think it's a hard question. In terms of the level of understanding, how do we assess it? It's a great question. And to assess the level of understanding, it's a very vague thing. As a teacher, I know to ask somebody, do you understand? If a person understands or doesn't, they don't know, because very often we think we understand, but we don't. So I find it's much easier to evaluate if you decide to set specific goals. So for example, my goal is that my child will understand how to compare fractions, or how to do multiplication, or how to spell, or how to read, or how to write a story. So if I have a specific goal for the activity, or my child understands different periods and can describe the dinosaurs that lived at certain times or what happened, if I know the goals that I want to achieve, then I know how to evaluate it. But if you tell me, I want my child to understand math, I cannot evaluate it because it's not specific. And for that, I would like the parents to know that we have the BC Ministry of Education. I realize some of the people here are not from British Columbia, but in every place there is a Ministry of Education or somebody that decides what are the goals for different age groups. So what the parents can do, and grandparents, they can go online. In BC, it's BC Ministry of Education, and to check for different grades what are the goals, and then you can evaluate. But if you want to evaluate something very vague, the evaluation probably will not be successful. I would say set smaller goals and then go from one to another. And for that reason, and I'm not paid by Duolingo, but I want to say for that reason, I really like how Duolingo works, because they split the curriculum into small lessons, and you get points for completing a lesson. If you make a mistake, it shows you how to correct it and you can figure it out. And then you know how you progress because you go small steps, but you see that you're going up. On the other hand, if they said, go and learn Irish, I do not know how to start. I have no skills. So I think split something big into small things and you can conquer it. Divide and conquer. Yeah.
Interesting. Next question, Marina. I'm a grandparent who can only contact my teenage children via FaceTime. What would you recommend for educational activities with them?
I do not know you, obviously, but I've learned a lot from my grandparents. I think in the older time, I grew up in Ukraine, the fact that our grandparents lived close to us, so sometimes we lived together, was a huge influence on our upbringing, because we used to listen more to the grandparents than to the parents. And here you say that the grandchildren and grandparents are the common enemy. They have the common enemy, the parents, yeah? So I think that one thing that you can do, and I don't want to call it educational activity or not, I think, what if you share your family story with your grandchildren? Very often our grandchildren know very little about the family history. A lot of families here came from different provinces, maybe from different countries. They experience different things that our kids learn in the social studies about, but never experienced. So why not to use this time to share something that you might not have had time to share before? Of course, you can read together, but I think for teenagers, it is something that if you can share your own struggle, what was difficult for you when you were a teenager? What was the things that you have done in your life that you are proud of and maybe not so proud of? But I think our kids know very little about the challenges that our forefathers dealt with. I mean, unfortunately, the study of history of Canada is not done, I don't want to say is not done well, but I think we should pay more attention to study the history of our country, because it will help kids to see it in the perspective. If you think of World War II, or even before the Great Depression, the challenges that our grandparents and great-grandparents had to deal with, I think we stop being in the center of the universe and we put it in the perspective. And I think it's a huge role of the grandparents to convey some of the family history. But that what I benefited a lot from my grandparents telling us their stories, how they chose their professions, how they lived, how they grew up, maybe to do a family tree together. My cousin and I were trying to do a family tree together because we realized that we don't know much about our great grandparents.
Right. And I think many grandparents are in this same situation as our participant today, where their children and grandchildren are in another part of, never mind the country, another part of the world.
Yes.
And I also realized that this question came in early, so I believe your blog would be a great tool for this grandparent, and he or she would come across as pretty cool, showing some of that, especially the science and math, if that's of course what their grandchild is interested in. Thank you for that, Marina. So this is a interesting question. How many, and probably one that's asked a lot, how many hours realistically should be spent on schooling each day, depending on grade level?
So for me to answer it is, what do you mean by schooling? When you're teaching your child to cook and you're looking at the box and you're showing them how you do the ratios, how do you measure the amount of water, the amount of flour and other things, are you teaching? To me, it is schooling. I think that we're teaching our kids formally and informally. A lot of people feel that the only thing that matters is the formal education. And I always believe that informal education, how to manage your budget, how to figure out, for example, how much we're paying for electricity at home, how much different things at home cost, how do we decide how we buy groceries, how much do we buy, how much do we pay. All this to me is schooling as well. For some reason, in the last century, we separated the formal schooling, you know, you're doing worksheets, from the schooling that is so important to survive. So I think uh, it depends on a child, but I would tell the parents what you're teaching the kids at home, the discipline, how to manage your home, how to do a lot of things that we take for granted. That's so important. I see a lot of undergraduates who get to UBC and have no life skills at all because everything had been done by the parents. So to me, schooling, we have to reconsider what we mean by schooling. Schooling for the sake of getting a grade and getting to university is a tiny slice of real schooling that we have to go through, in my view.
Yeah, that's really comforting to know. And I'm guessing that this particular participant is possibly referring to, because I'm just thinking myself, the recent letter I got from school that gave me direction, or us parents directions, as to how many hours our students at a certain grade level should be doing. And so it covered from grade in high school from grade 8 right up to 12. And I compared it to Ontario, and where in Ontario they had certain hours, and I was just interested in senior, right? In seniors, it got to like 2 to 3 hours per subject per week. But from my own school here, it was, they had gave specific hours for the early grades, but once it got to seniors, it was up to the student and up to the teacher. There was no direction. So, you know, that question may possibly coming from that or not. But I know that was something that I was thinking about. How can it differ so drastically from province to province?
I know that with my parents, they never measured the hours for me, and we never measured the hours for our children, because you just need to do your work and you have to have it done. And you have to have it done well. Now, sometimes if let's say languages are challenging for you, so it will take you more time. But I feel that it's very, to me, it's very unrealistic to believe that you can just tell the hours for everybody and say, in this grade, you have to spend N hours a day. It depends on a person. It's like, if you tell me how much time do I need to spend to write a paper, it depends what paper. It depends how prepared I am. So I personally feel that it's very hard to deal with the hours, like per se, but you have to have a routine. So for example, you have to agree with your child that every day they do formal school related work, formal, whatever the teachers assigned or they got emails, for example, for 4 hours, whatever you decide. But they cannot do it in a row. Think about the classroom. They have breaks. They do physical activity. They cannot just sit for 4 hours and concentrate. So you have to decide how this time is going to be spread throughout the day. But I think it all depends on a child. There is no one formula for all.
Yeah, and our flexibility and understanding.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So this is the last question. I'm just looking at time. We're doing really well for time. It's 1:58.
Yeah.
So this parent is asking, or person is asking, how to communicate COVID-19 with the children: positive, objective, or skeptical?
Oh, it's $1 million question. I personally feel that it is an opportunity to ask a lot of questions. For example, a lot of people feel fear because they didn't, because they look at the graphs climb up, and nobody gives you a comparison about how many people die of regular flu every year. We don't know. So we feel that it's the only thing that happens, and it brings fear into us. So I think skepticism to me is always a very good thing. So to ask, how do you know? For example, when they tell us the mortality rates, do we know how many people are sick with COVID and are not reported? So we have to teach our kids, and that's maybe the biggest issue, that the biggest thing that we can teach them. Today, it's very easy to spread the news because we have the social media. Some of this is real news, some of this is fake news. And I think we have to be skeptical. Respectful, but skeptical. Even if the World Health Organization or some other body gives you information, there are people who work there. They're humans like us. And one of the things we'll do, we make mistakes. So we might omit something. So when you look at this data, I think it's very important to ask questions. What does it mean? How does it compare with other disease? So for example, if my child were to ask me, I would ask them to check how many people die in Canada every day in a regular year. So I was very interested in that, and I started looking at the data. How many people die in the United States every day, independently of COVID? What are the other causes of death? Like, is the data reporting to us people who died from COVID or with COVID? It means people who had very significant other issues. So I think being skeptical is very important, because skepticism can help us defeat fear. When you are scared, when you are fearful, your emotions work and your reason stops working. Yeah, you're in the mode of emotion where you cannot even think straight. In English, you say, I cannot think straight. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
scared. I'm so emotional.
Yeah.
So I think this can be an opportunity to do a lot of math and studying. And if it is something that the children are interested in and they are capable of doing it, of course, I wouldn't be doing this with the kindergarten age child, but they can look at different data and try to understand what it means. Or what questions can we ask that we would like to know the answers? I think questions very often are more important than answers. And if the kids can ask questions, and if the parents don't know the answers, that's fine. Those are real issues. COVID is an issue that for now, none of us knows how we should have behaved, how we should behave. A lot of people are thinking deeply about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to learn about the exponential growth and about other things, and
Mm-hmm.
to understand how important mathematics is and the data analysis in our age. And also not to trust everything you see online.
Right. Yeah. And we're told that if you're, whatever your child is anxious about, get them involved in understanding it, exposing them to the knowledge and taking control. And
Yeah,
that can relieve the anxiety. So
yeah,
that is the last question, Marina. Do you, and I thought your to share your blog information with our participants
absolutely.
today is actually, well,
Please.
it's actually quite easy. It's a very easy that I can share. It's
Mhm.
simply blogs, and correct me if I get this wrong. I just wrote it down earlier. Blogs.ubc.ca/M for Marina Milner, which is spelled Milner.
I did
And
remember
then,
it. It's good you know.
yeah, I wrote it down. And then, can you share your email address if that's you
Absolutely. It
mentioned
is on my
your
blog. It is marina dot. Oh, can you please instead, can you please put it on they can Google me up easily. It can be put next to your YouTube link later. It is marina dot milner, MILNER hyphen BOLOTIN at ubc.ca. So it is marina.milner-bolotin at ubc.ca. And you can Google me and find me and email me.
that's great, and that will be in the recording as well for anybody that wants that. Super.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to just move my screen to my last slide. this panel moves all over my screen. I have to move it as I work between slides. But so I just want to remind our participants today that the lectures, once again, they are full. But for anybody that cannot join us, for anyone that you know that was unable to register, please let them know that most of the lectures will be on our YouTube channel very soon, within a couple of days. If you have any questions, you can contact us at info.exl@ubc.ca. And so now it just leaves me to say, first of all, thank you so much, Marina, for sharing such a wealth of tools and resources. I feel like I've unearthed a treasure trove, and I know it's something that I will have bookmarked in my own laptop. So thank you so much for being so generous with sharing that knowledge, and also being very generous with your time. I can see that you're very busy.
But my kids are grown up. I'm very lucky with that.
Right. And I'm sort of halfway there, so I can appreciate that too. So so thank you so much, Marina. And then finally, just a thank you to our participants today for being here today, for offering such carefully considered questions, super questions. I think you enjoyed them, Marina, and making us part of your Thursday. So just leaves me to say, take care, everybody, and stay safe, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.